Through Doom Bloom, we aim to present how someone's personal perception and how they see the world is going to affect how they interact with that world and how that's going to change how they live their life. We aim to illustrate that point through an eldritch being that got trapped in a human world. And now we'll hear the
human
eldritch being.
world, all of its harmony, empathy, and hope, and all of its hatred, conflict, and lies, and the freedom that humans value so much. How ironic. It's the thing they would fight for the most, even at the cost of taking it from another person. And this town, it's a pretty sight, and a pretty prison, but I will not be trapped.
The eldritch being in question is actually a botanical abomination that you can see. She manifested in the world as a plant sort of creature and was summoned by a cult to be used as they will. But she happened to kill that cult and survive, but got trapped as a human that was sacrificed. Now, as a human living among the mortals, she has to navigate this world, and the biggest problem she's facing is that she does not have her powers. She is completely weak, and she must work towards getting all of her powers back and getting her original form back. So this is Elle, the main character, and the Eldritch Abomination as a human. The town that she's, well, actually a village that she's trapped in, is a trade route village where many foreigners and many new people pass by. And she is supposed to navigate that world, see how it functions, and integrate herself in that world without revealing that she is not really, human. So what she does is she opens a flower shop, a very cute, very wholesome flower shop, and she grows plants there which are supposed to help her get her original form and powers back. The symbol on the door is actually herself as an eldritch being, and it's sort of a key location that a player can look and always remember, okay, that's my flower shop, that's where I have to go back to. Visitors and allies that she meets are foreigners from different lands, which offer her knowledge of plants from different parts of the world. And what she's supposed to do with these people is talk to them and get them to open up more to her, and as they talk more, she's going to steal memories of plants that they have special attachment to from their memories. And when she takes those plants, they will sort of help her again get her form back, get her magic back, and form new plants that she can use as weapons. These flowers are crafted specifically for offensive and defensive attacks, and throughout the game she collects, again, from the village that she is in and the foreigners from whose memories she takes the plants back. Now, our main antagonists, and they are creating quite a problem for us, are hunters who are trying to find Elle and trying to find where she is. Our first and main antagonist is a girl by the name of Effie, who is one of the cultists who summoned her. She's the only cultist that survives, and at the beginning, the player's goal is to find Effie as soon as possible and not let her tell the other hunters of who she is exactly, because Effie is the only person who knows how Elle looks. If she gets to the hunters, tells the whole organization who Elle is and how she looks, they will find her and it will result in immediate game over. If Elle kills her, she will later on face the other hunters by the end of the game, while trying actually at the beginning to avoid them. By the end, she will actually come in contact with them, and at the end of the game, it's the final battle between Elle and the hunters. Now, our core loop is to explore the world, gather plants that will be important to us, progress through the story by interacting with the NPCs, developing bonds that will help us choose our ending. Will we become more open towards these NPCs, and will we want to form bonds that will last, or will we not care at all for those NPCs and by the end get our form back and destroy the whole world? The third important point is that we will battle the hunters. By the end of the game, a huge battle will happen that will determine what happens to Elle. And the final thing is we will upgrade our spells by collecting these plants, which will we use to fight them. Our game pillars are freedom to choose what we want to do by the end of the game. Will we, again, form form relationships, or will we just destroy everything? Morality of what we will do, what we will do with that freedom that we have throughout the game, and Eldritch Magic is the most important thing, that is to say those flowers and plants that we craft. We aim, our target audience is 16 people of 16 and up. We will target RPG fans that love narrative-driven games, and we will focus on PCs at first and maybe later on get to consoles. The cost of the game at the beginning is set at $15, and we will try to get mid-end computers by utilizing, even though we will utilize the newest technology such as Unreal 5, we will get to target mid-end computers by utilizing stylization, which will ease the generation of the world on the said computer, so more people can get to play the game. The games that inspired us and that are of some relation to our game are Fear and Hunger, Termina, Planescape Torment, and Dark Souls. These games are not completely same as us. We do not aim to copy in any way these games. It's just we will focus on, for example, like Dark Souls has a lot of important narrative elements which are important throughout the whole story. That's what we aim to focus on. Very narrative-heavy story, as with Planescape Torment, and the Eldritch sort of aesthetic and world that Fear and Hunger Termina have. And with all that being said, I would like to thank my team that this was not possible with. Thank you for listening.
I'll start because I haven't talked in a while. Okay, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
I love seeing new games, and they always spark imagination. I'm curious about one thing, on the visual aspect of the game, because you cited some really good games as your reference point, but they're usually very dark and ominous games, which like a lot of dark gravitas to them. And you're choosing to design a game which has flower magic, and more like nature-oriented theme, which might be, even by looking like these snippets here, more oriented toward color and vibrance compared to the visual references you cited. Is that, do you see that as a problem? How do you plan to kind of circumvent those two, that difference?
Well, the games that we chose are specifically because of the narrative and what they do throughout the story. But even though those games are dark and art is more focused on plants and flowers, we do not aim to lose that sort of darkness that it has, because the choices that Elle makes, by the end she can kill everyone around her, or she can be okay with that. She is at the end of like summoned into a body of a woman, so she's technically a walking corpse. A lot of elements of our game are quite dark themselves, and it's sort of that contrast between, oh look, a pretty flower, oh she's a walking corpse situation, which is, I think, still keeps that dark element without being in your face. We do not want to be, look, blood, gore, this is disgusting, it's terrifying. We more want to be subtle about it and have players think about morality of the situation they're in and think about how what they do can be both, again, good, bad, and how they can do quite gruesome things, or they don't have to do those things. So we don't want to force the player into being depressing. We want to let them choose. Maybe they want to be a depressing player, maybe they want to be more positive. So we didn't want the game to be very dark from the get-go. We wanted it to be more open to what the player wants to choose to do. Thank you.
So I have one question. As I understand, as the game goes forward, the combat part becomes more important towards the end of the game. So I wanted to ask, how is the combat? How was it imagined? How is it designed? What was the idea? Is the reference from Dark Souls the idea for combat, or is it just an artistic choice?
No, the reference with Dark Souls, again, just narrative, just the way they take items and how they implement them into the games and their general narrative focus. The combat is structured differently. So again, she collects flowers and crafts her new flowers that do not exist. So what she has is, in one hand, she has 3 flowers in the left hand, and on the right hand, she also has 3 flowers. And roots, which she can, for example, detach her old flowers and attach new flowers. And she can use them to cast different magic, like from the beginning of the game, she's quite weak, so she can just maybe summon a little bit of a pollen or just control some plants, but by the end, she can control the nature as a whole. For example, if she's running away and she wants to cast a spell, as she's running, she can cast an area of effect sort of roots that will appear behind her. It will slow her movement down a little bit in those seconds that she is casting the spell, but it will slow down the hunters, for example, that are chasing her. So her combat is solely her casting spells, what different plants can do. That's sort of how we imagined the combat for this game.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What if permanent ice on our planet suddenly melted? Let's find out. Welcome to Microworld. The story goes like this. 30 years in the future, after the melting of North Pole glaciers, new species of microorganisms emerge. And as one of those microorganisms, your goal is to lead your gang, defeat others, and conquer the world. So, how are you going to do that? In this top-down action roguelike, your job is to develop your gang by stealing mutations from your defeated enemies in order to become stronger for the next round of enemies to come. But first, you need to pick a character. Each character comes with its own playstyle, weaknesses, and strengths you will need to consider. So will you pick Guba, a tanky brute who can deflect damage? Or maybe you want to play a Snapper, a fierce little fighter that compensates for low health by being able to multiply. Or maybe you want to play as Vex, a cocky speedster who can evade the fastest attacks. So you're going to take one of these characters on this map. This is the procedurally generated map of the North Pole. Since the ice always moves on the North Pole, each time you play, the routes will be different. The map is made out of nodes, where each node represents a level. Depending on the level that you choose, a different outcome will be, and you will need to also consider the hazards that appear, such as thunderstorms and oil spills. The map is also separated into 3 sections, or depth levels, that dictate how your player will evolve. So, not only will your player grow in size and stats, but you will also be able to carry 1 additional mutation with you. At the beginning, you will only be able to have 1, and at the end, you will be able to have up to 3. So, our core mechanics of the game are movement and combat. You move simply by pointing your mouse or joystick in the direction that you want to move. As for the combat, you have your primary attack, which is a short-range melee attack, and you have your abilities such as poison, spikes, or maybe electric emitters. And each character has a special type of attack that can be used only when you fill up your rage bar, which is done so by using your other abilities. The core game loop consists of 3 steps. Firstly, you explore the level that you're in and you kill small monsters in order to multiply. After that, you need to find the main gang of the level that is the strongest and fight them. After you do so, and when you defeat most of them, you will be able to choose whether you want to kill or spare them. If you choose to kill them, your gang will grow and you will gain their mutation. But if you choose to spare them, they will join you on your journey and you will form a symbiosis where they will modify your existing mutation. For example, if you already had spikes and you spare the poisonous enemy, you will gain poisonous spikes. So what happens when you die in the game? You will gain a certain amount of evolution points that is dependent on how much you progressed in the run. Each upgrade is tied to a specific character and it further elevates their advantage in the game. So for example, you might get movement speed when you're next to your allies, or additional armor when you take a certain amount of damage. Our every decision in the game is based around these three game design pillars. We want every decision to be based around combat, and each system in the game elevates it. We want to give our player the agency so that they can feel consequences of their decision, both positive and negative. And since our game has modular systems, our replayability is very high. So we want to make a game that is about microorganisms fighting with movement, combat, fluid movement and combat, with mutations that augment your gameplay. And with all of those features combined, we are easily able to distinguish ourselves in the market of similar games. So we want to specifically target roguelike enthusiasts who enjoy collecting every upgrade in the game that is available, and they are usually between the ages of 17 and 35. Because our systems are very intuitive and easy to control, we are able to publish our game on every major platform, including but not limited to Windows, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, at the price of €15. This is my awesome team, and thank you.
So my question is, did you think about the end game? In the sense of, like, I can see there's randomness, roguelike, there's some progression and so on. Did you think about like what happens at the very end? That's what I want to know.
Yes, so the pacing is made so you will need to progress slowly through the levels and reach the final boss. And that is basically the end. You will become strong enough eventually that you will come to the final boss, learn its moves and choreography, and defeat them in order to get the ending.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
You said that your character multiplies. How do you control
Yes.
the other characters and
So-
how they fight them?
Yes. Okay. So you have 3 actions that you will learn as your character evolves. So, for example, at the beginning, you will be able to give them a command only to follow you, but then later you will able to mark a certain target that they will attack. So it's kind of action wheel that you will be able to pop up on your screen and select which action you want them to perform.
Cool.
Veliko zeleno.
Okay, logično. All right, good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I just want to turn your attention to this symbol over here, specifically this blue flower in the middle. It is a symbol originating from 19th century Romanticism, specifically the unreleased novel Heinrich von Afterdingen by the German poet Novalis. More on that later, but it is important for understanding the game that we're going to be talking about today, Odes to Istros. Odes to Istros is a narrative-driven 2D side-scrolling RPG with claustrophobic combat inspired by Darkest Dungeon and exploration inspired by the Banner Saga series. Set in a futuristic Europe on the brink of socioeconomic collapse, players take on the role of a renowned ship captain tasked against his will with delivering a mysterious piece of cargo from one end of the Danube to the next. Why Danube? Let's talk about that for a bit. So when we designed our game, we wanted something that explores the place of nature in a contemporary setting. But we also wanted something very concrete that works as that symbol. And because of its cultural and historical significance, we chose the Danube. Additionally, we didn't want to do something obvious. We didn't want to just have you go around the river collecting garbage. We wanted something that our players can sort of connect with and explore beyond our boundaries of our game. And to do that, we tried to tap into something that I believe we all can relate to on some level, and that would be the art of Romanticism. From there, we derived our core pillars. Those would be historical inspiration, thematic cohesion, diegetic permanence, and robust storytelling. Let's talk about that inspiration of Romanticism for a little bit. We want to present Romanticism as this response to the Industrial Revolution and sort of how it brought ideas such as naturalism, nationalism, this focus on heroic figures that it inherited from classical Greek art, and kind of explore how those themes might be relevant today. To do that, first and foremost, we have a bunch of factions, each representing various ideas. So, for example, the symbol you saw at the beginning, the Queen of Clubs, is a symbol of an organization that goes by that name that seeks to return to a more simpler society that sort of like sort of reconnects humanity with its ties to nature, compared to like other groups that might be obsessed with history in a different fashion. Our inspirations, we also wanted to bring something a bit more literal. So we looked at Romanticism era art to inspire our character designs. And we wanted to bring in as many of it as possible through a mechanic we called the tapestry. So players throughout the game, by learning new things, will acquire pieces of paintings such as The Wanderer over the Sea of Fog, and each piece would come with its own bit of lore that further familiarizes them with our world. We also took music as an inspiration. So for example, we all know the beautiful Danube by Strauss. And here's how that motif could sound like if it were to go through the lens of our world. That's a lot to take in, so we try to design a gameplay loop that lets players sort of explore these themes and take them in at their own pace. First and foremost, the player would have to choose one of the various sports that are situated along Danube's riverbanks. From there, after arriving, they would go on an explore through point-and-click styled quests and cargo contracts, and eventually these quests end with a combat situation, either ship to ship or on land. And bringing back that point of diegetic permanence we talked about, combat in Odes to Istros happens rarely, but it never ends in a game over. Every lost combat encounter has narrative consequences, and the game essentially keeps going, which allows for some replayability and increases the stakes. Let's talk about the gameplay for a bit. Okay, we let our players customize their captain from beginning to end. They can choose one of the various backgrounds. Here we have the mongrel, the poet, and the whoreson. So let's take the whoreson, for example. What the background primarily influences are the skills players can use in combat. The key skill here is the virtue Heart of Hearts, which lets the player interact with their environments and acquire pieces of the tapestry we mentioned earlier. We also have our alignment, again split in between those three key ideas we talked about: individualism or heroicism, nationalism, and naturalism. And now let's take a look how one such scene from a game might play out. So after a particular combat situation, the player returns to their ship and has a chance to discuss what happened with one of their companions. Before interacting with Jonas's gun over here, that's the guy in green, the captain will have access to certain conversation options. But after interacting with the gun, they might learn something new, and that can change things in various ways. Interacting with the gun would bring up a 3D puzzle, for example, where the player has to put the gun back together. And after that, what I already explained ensues. So for our designs, we really wanted to come up with something that sort of brings in technology that looks as a cross between a futuristic and a retro world. We wanted weapons that are entirely futuristic, and we wanted weapons that are one-to-one recreations of their historical counterparts. This is what combat would look like, clearly inspired by Darkest Dungeon. Captain always in the middle to signify that fantasy of always being in control. Companions on your ship can also help out. And speaking of ships, there are various types the captain would be able to choose from, each with their own bonuses, and the biggest difference would be their cargo capacity. Each ship can take on a different amount of crew, which diversifies your companion cast in every playthrough. This is what ship-to-ship combat would look like, inspired by the Steel Battalion series of games, if anyone remembers that. Very claustrophobic, very tense, and each companion has a part to play on the ship, meaning as the captain, you're exclusively on the bridge. You don't have your companions there with you, but they all have a part to play. Our game is aimed at people who like to explore immersive worlds. It is aimed at people who want to experience storytelling as the biggest quality of the interactive medium, and is marketed towards people who appreciate deep and strategic combat. Some of the games in our market niche are The Thaumaturge, a game that released just this year with a focus on narrative and dialogue. Darkest Dungeon, obviously, for its deep combat, and the recently released but equally terrible Dragon Age: The Veilguard for its companion mechanics. Sorry, Bioware. And our price range would be around 30 euros, similar to those games, with the exception of Dragon Age: Veilguard. This is our wonderful team. I would just like to thank them for treating this idea with the utmost respect, and for all the work they put in, because without them, it just wouldn't have been possible. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. This was lovely. Great pitch. I fixated on one thing. So you mentioned topics, and it's not procedural this time. So you mentioned topics of romanticism and heroism, which are topics of grandeur. You know, they're like grand topics, grand themes, and I think they, historically, through visual representation, they kind of represented in these grand themes, and they maybe such require these grand stages to be presented, to be like completely established. But then you couple that with something I thought was curious, and that's you mentioned claustrophobic combat. Why was the topic of claustrophobia important or coupled with these themes?
So I sort of used claustrophobic as a something that would make combat feel important, almost as equally as important as those themes that we aim to explore through our narrative. So with companions that can permanently die through combat, with every battle having narrative ramifications, we kind of want combat not to be treated as filler for all the ideas we express through our design and our narrative, but we want it to be something that players engage with on an equally serious level.
Thank you. And just one follow-up, because I think I missed it, or maybe didn't mention it. What's the end goal of this game?
The end goal is to deliver the mysterious piece of cargo that the captain receives at the start of the game from Germany all the way to a port in Romania.
Thank you. I guess I asked two questions, yeah.
All right, that's it, I guess. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Nemanja, and in the next 7 minutes I'm excited to introduce you to our game, Fragments of the Void. Imagine waking up in a shattered reality without a memory how you got there or why. The only clue is a mysterious connection between you and your partner who is just as lost as you. Fragments of the Void is a two-player, narrative-driven exploration game where you and your partner solve puzzles and discover parts of your past that you do not remember. To give you a taste of the game, I would like for us to watch the trailer, short trailer together in order to break down gameplay elements afterwards. At the start of the game, you wake up on an island without a clue how you got there. With environmental subtle clues and inner monologues, players are pushed forward into the exploration of an island. We wanted to design our characters in alignment with their defining traits and implement those traits into the narrative seamlessly. We wanted to design our characters with contrasting personalities, so both players have unique atmosphere while playing the game. As the game is made for two players to play on two different consoles, both you and your partner will have to choose between Aiden and Aurora and who will play who. Both characters have their traits different, and it will shape how you experience the game. They also both have their distinct gadgets. Two unique gadgets that we designed are Aiden's index and Aurora's tablets. Each of the gadgets are corresponding with a certain character, and they're helping them solve puzzles in a unique and interesting and more engaging way. Aiden's index is a book that provides him with subtle hints and clues in text of written form that will help him solve puzzles and recover some of his past. While Aurora's futuristic tablet helps her find some clues on the map, navigate through the world, and maybe recover some hidden paths. Now let's talk a bit about our game loop and gameplay elements. While this is a cooperative game, at the start of the game, both players start individually on two different islands. That was a narrative choice, so we wanted to enhance the feeling of separation that characters feel in-game at the start of the game because they do not remember each other. While traversing the island, you will find subtle clues about your past and pieces of your past that will guide you both to the end of the island. Only when both of you come to the end of the island and recover all clues, only then both of you go to a next part of the game or a shared memory. What is a shared memory? A shared memory is a next big part of the game. In the technical sense, we can understand it as a next level of the game. In this part of the game, we have a shared gameplay between the players where they solve puzzles now together in cooperation. As the game is made for two players to play on two different PCs or computers or whatever, players will have to cooperate between themselves, sharing information about information they get on their screen in order to overcome puzzles there in front of them. Puzzles are diverse in their nature, getting more and more complex as the game goes on. They're also cleverly thought of, so they make the obstacles game put at you very fresh and interesting. As you dwell deeper into the narrative part of the game, you will find unsettling truth. How did you get there? You will find out that you and your partner use your privilege in the real world, threatened by the end of the world, to escape the planet. What did you left behind? Is there any justification to that? A mystery only you can solve. Our game loop is rather simple. At the start of the game, players will start in their individual islands exploring, after which cooperative puzzle solving starts. After players solve their individual parts of the game, they will be reunited in larger areas to continue their journey together in a shared cooperative gameplay. Our main game pillars would be narrative-driven exploration, co-op, adventure, and puzzle solving. Some games we took inspirations from are It Takes Two for its cooperative focus on cooperative gameplay, since we strongly believe that there are not nearly enough cooperative games out there in the market. Also, Life is Strange for its narrative depth, and Before Your Eyes for its awesome atmosphere. Starting at Windows PC, we plan into the future to provide game at different major consoles. Focusing on the market and competitive games at the market, we landed upon the price of about 20 to 25 euros. This game is also perfect for couples and siblings to play in pair, but also for curious players that have anyone like friend or partner to play with. And at the end, to thank my awesome team and dedicated artists and developers that played their part in this game, this couldn't be possible without them. Thank you a lot, and thank you all for coming today.
Thank you again for the presentation. I was wondering how often do you switch from a single player to multiplayer scenes? Are you worried that people expecting to be playing together have to wait a long time until they finally put together?
Yeah, that was a concern of ours, to not overdo it with single player if it's a cooperative game. But we wanted to make sure to implement it that single part of the game is like a passageway to a multiplayer part. It was a short sections of game, narrative driven, where you get clues about the story and backlore of the game, so you can better feel the atmosphere and then continue to cooperative part of the game. Those are just short sections for narrative purposes.
Okay, understand.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, because when you showed the like individual islands and cooperative gameplay, the places where it takes place looks pretty much the same as you showed us, but does it evolve as you go through the story from like the broken pieces of Earth or something to something more, or how does it evolve with the story?
Basically, individual islands are thematically a certain type of thematic, and that's where you get backlore of that type of island and part of the story. And after that, after both players finish that passageway to the shared memory, that is the same atmosphere, basically shared memories are memories from their past together. And that's the same thematic as individual islands. After they finish a shared memory, they go into another individual of totally different atmosphere and different style, basically, of their past, something different from the first one. And after they finish with that, they are then joined together until the rest of the game to play in cooperative shared gameplay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, just a quick one. I'm really curious. What's the emotional journey of this game? Is it the one about like mending a broken relationship between two people or saving the world?
That's my favorite question. We have two-way motivation for the game. First part of the game is a cool motivation where players do not know about each other, like characters do not know about each other. They're remembering it, and firstly they learn about each other, and first part of the game is motivation that they want to get together. When they get together, their second part of the game would be where they try to escape that shattered reality. They're finding out why they are there, what happened, how did they get there. So basically, it's a two-way motivation. First part of the game is they come together. Second part of the motivation is how do we get out of here. So that's basically it.
Welcome to the world of forgotten roots. What if the last hope for nature lay in the hands of someone who's never known it? Forgotten Roots is a narrative adventure game with resource management set in a post-nature dystopia. Centuries into the future, transhumanist thought has overtaken the world. All plant life and all natural life has been deemed obsolete, completely outlawed and forgotten. People started upgrading themselves with machines, practically making themselves into robots for peak performance. In this world, the government elite pools all the wealth while the poor are left to starve. Meet our protagonist, Calyx. He is an officer, a police officer, whose job it is to work for the regime and protect the order of things. He is very good at his job, and he's among one of the best in his precinct. One day, while on a work mission, a mysterious signal leads him into the depths of a sewer system, long abandoned. That's where he finds the last living plant. Touched by visions of Earth's past, he decides to risk everything to protect and revive the natural world, even if it means going against the government he was so loyal to. Our core game loop consists of exploration, gathering resources, crafting, and then using them back to progress the story. During the day, you get to be a regular police officer. You have to go on work missions and not raise suspicions. You get to meet different characters. Some may help you, but some may betray you. You have to choose which leads to follow and who to trust. Every narrative choice you make creates a great impact on the rest of the story. During the night, you go to your underground sewers where you found a plant and establish a lab where you grow different types of plant. That's where you get to create different kinds, you get to combine them. Some plants have toxic effects, some plants have healing effects, and you can use them in different missions in order to help you progress the story. You have to daily maintain them in order for them not to wither, but you have limited resources like water and potting space. It's your job to decide which plants to keep and develop further and which to discard. As the story progresses and as you explore the world, you get to meet a scattered group of cult-like outcasts who believe that the second nature of coming is imminent. They may help you in your quest, and by gathering a number of them, this may lead to a potential evolution. While exploring, you also get to find different spots in the city that have weak points where you could plant the seeds that you create. By creating a plant that's low maintenance but high growth, you could possibly organize a greater revolution. So to sum it up, the game goals are to create a fast-growing mutant plant and spread its seeds across the world, to find like-minded allies to help with the task, and also to uncover the mystery behind the lab and discover if you're the first to attempt this. Our game design pillars are story, exploration, and crafting. We want to create a great narrative story with choices that actually make a difference. We want the player to explore the game world and interact with different characters. And also we want to create a crafting system that's both fun but challenging. Our game's player is someone who doesn't want games for their pure mechanics. They want a great narrative with moral dilemmas, and they're a creative problem solver that always thinks 2 steps ahead. We decided that Steam and Epic Games are the best platforms, the best stores for our game, as the similar games on the market are also on them. The price point of $25 is also something that we decided on by looking at similar games. And our game's unique selling points are immersive narrative with impactful choices. Our game's thought-provoking and has compelling themes, and also has an innovative resource management system. Similar games are Pentiment, Witchwood, and Stardew Valley. The narrative choices and their depth of pentiment is something that we incorporated into our game, but also world exploration, resource management, and crafting, from which within Stardew Valley are core to our game. And at the end, before you play this, you have to ask yourself, will you risk everything in order to lead a revolution for a greener tomorrow? I want to thank my team. They did a great job, and thank you for listening.
I want to know more about the world. Is this like a linear adventure or more open, like Stardew Valley?
Well, it's linear in a sense that if you don't achieve the goal, you basically lost the game. But during the game, your choices are what make a different gameplay. But the story is, when you look at it, linear.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I'm curious, how will the players know, did you think about it? Like, how would they know how they're progressing? How far along are they? Because I saw that it says that you're spreading the seeds. Do you know how you're going to visualize this?
Yeah, so basically, when you're in the lab, every plant has its stats, for example, watering, and for example, growth rate. So if you create a plant that you don't have to regularly water, but grows fast, you can use it to place it in a world. But during the game, you also discover those spots. And if you discover them all, your potential is pretty big. And also if you make a super mutant plant to plant there. So it's basically with visuals and narrative and everything kind of gets heavier. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This was an introduction to a super cute, hyper-casual game where you get to play, you guessed that, as a squirrel. And I would really like to give you just that. But no. Today I'm here to talk about problems we're all too familiar with, some more directly than others. This is a story of Sprout, a young squirrel that lives his life of childhood joy in his pink haven. And his life was wonderful, until it wasn't. The unnerving sound of excavators pierces through the air, tearing apart everything in sight, even his little sanctuary. And this story sets the stage for a 2D side-scrolling platformer with a unique focus on narrative. We achieve this in two key ways. First, we combine classic platforming mechanics such as dodging obstacles and jumping, think 2D Mario, with environmental puzzles that add to the story's tension. And second, since there is no actual dialogues and players can move only in 2 dimensions, we packed each level with as much visual storytelling to make the world rich and immersive. So here you can see a tutorial level where we provided different paths to reach hidden areas. This game rewards exploration. That's why we stashed helpful boosts and collectibles to make traversing through the game more fun and engaging. And that leads me to our game design pillars. So as I said, exploration, level design is built around it, while survival is a constant theme that informs players' decisions. Visual storytelling is used as a narrative device, while puzzles simply teach players how to go about the city. And as for our gameplay loop, we really try to keep things simple. So players have challenges after which they gain new abilities and progress the story, which then pushes them further and deeper into the game. And while forced to venture beyond Sprouts Park, players will meet a cast of city animals that are affected by the same unfortunate event. And they should stick around because those animals will give them vital information on their surroundings. And they will not only be equipped with knowledge on how to survive hardships big and small, but they will learn the ways of the city. And I must warn you, this game will constantly remind players that they play as a tiny squirrel, so they should get used to a lot of dodging and stealthy movements. Here you can see an example of one of our bosses the players will encounter during their play. This boss is a machine, a driverless excavator, courtesy of Green Rock. And players are advised to avoid those boss's attacks altogether because one single hit and the game is over. But beyond dodging attacks, what else is there anyway? In this game, players will traverse through 4 unique biomes, one of which is park, of course, the sewers, because city, its outskirts, and the abandoned botanical garden, each packed with plethora of unique quests and puzzles. And by the way, nearly every machinery in this game is interactive. So, all things considered, we are aiming for a place among titles like everyone knows, Little Nightmares, Limbo, and Rainworld. But at a price point that is accessible as a mid-tier indie game. And we want Sprout's Journey to appeal to a wide range of players, which is why we're developing it for both PC and major platforms. Our team believes that this cross-platform approach will make this game accessible to everyone, so from high-end consoles to more casual setups. And as for our target audience, we want to reach people from 18 to 35, all players that would like to see a gaming experience that combines platforming challenges with meaningful storytelling. And in that way, we are both tapping into classic gaming nostalgia along with a timely message about renewal and preservation. And here in Sprout's Journey, players are not only invited on an adventure, they are part of a message. They will learn that even the smallest actions can have consequences, real consequences, and that hope and care for the world can come from unexpected places. So join Sprout, take part in Sprout's Journey, because even the smallest of creatures can have a world of difference. We are M3A2, and thank you very much for your attention. No, it's not procedural.
Oh, then next question. Lovely stuff, beautiful visuals, and great presentation. Thank you. Yeah, really good job. Yes. So I have a question. You said the game has no dialogue, right?
Yeah, no actual dialogue, meaning there are no animals that can make a conversation as we are now doing.
That's what I'm curious about, because you said no dialogue, but then your character design, all the animals have anthropomorphic features.
Yes, yes. We used that like visual language to make it more appealing to players and sort of like how would I explain this? We have that philosophy that if a creature is more anthropomorphic, it can be players can easily connect with it. While on the other side, if you see just an animal or just a squirrel, then you don't then make that instant connection. So we kind of had to make it like more anthropomorphic and to add like a pinch of cuteness, because this game is hard.
Thank you. Quick question. I noticed that Sprout has a backpack. What for?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and thank you for it. Well, unfortunately, we rendered that information as not as vital for this presentation, but that backpack actually carries a very important item in this game. A little Sprout is given like a tiny sprout, like basically a seed, because his park is torn apart, it is destroyed, and he is given a task to I don't know how to say it in English, sorry, to find another surface to grow another tree. So basically, the goal of the game for the player is to find a new safe place. Yeah, a bit of the lore. Like firstly, we thought that maybe it's not important for a player to find or to have a tree as a home, because home and house, like that's not the same. Maybe he can have a home in a city that's not a tree as such. Yeah. Yeah.
What happens when humanity's desire for progress ruins their future? How would a civilization so used to taking from their Earth survive when they're forced to give everything back? After humanity pushes Earth to the brink of devastation in their pursuit of progress, a biomechanical AI entity emerges from the depths and punishes their hubris. The protagonist, a sheltered youth, embarks on a journey to reach humanity's oppressor and have a conversation about the Earth's future. And that oppressor's name? Catalyst. And now a short presentation of the world we'll be exploring. Is a narrative-driven 3D adventure game set in a first-person perspective. The player will be exploring a world currently experiencing an apocalypse and making their own path through it. It is similar to other games that feature their narrative aspects heavily, such as Disco Elysium and Detroit Become Human. There are three major game design pillars we focused on, the first being exploration. This is a game about exploring a world currently being destroyed, and as such we wanted to provide evocative locales to explore. The second pillar is dialogue. Speaking with NPCs and interacting with them is a major way to progress through the game, to learn about the world, and to finally reach your goal. It is the meat of the game, so to speak. And the third pillar is world building, because exploration and dialogue both are important, because through them we learn about the history of Catalyst's arrival, as well as all the perspectives held by the survivors. The core loop of the game focuses on its narrative. The player enters an area, they are left to explore, to collect supplies for future trade, to avoid Catalyst's minions, and to discover where NPCs are located. Through interactions with these NPCs, the player can learn about the world, learn about the perspectives of the survivors, and in the future unlock more dialogue options. These conversations are very open-ended, and the player is allowed to explore them and go through them any way they seem fit. They may agree with the points held by the survivors, or might ignore them if the player disagrees. The NPCs might also have tasks for the player, like fetch quests or relaying information to NPCs, as well as trade items that would either give you more dialogue options in the future or help you interact with the world, like opening shortcuts. Our target audience are young adults, storytellers, people who seek to experience a fully fleshed out world with realistic characters. We expect the game to be launched on all major platforms, and the expected price for such a title is around €19.99. Our journey starts at the outskirts of the city of Mendeleo. Our player, in order to reach the craft held by Calyx, must travel through all 5 parts of the city and reach the bayside, where the craft is located. After the player explores, meets all NPCs, and collects items, they have to find their own secure path forward, usually by solving environmental puzzles. Mendeleo is a former bastion of industry and progress, and as such, its aesthetic is a combination of industrial and futuristic. Our protagonist is a young adult, around 20 years old. They have been sheltered from the apocalypse by their mother, who is a founding member of a group that seeks to destroy Calyx for good. They've been prepared for a journey to Calyx's craft to infiltrate it from the inside, but plans change. From selectable gender to undetermined ideology, the protagonist is truly a point-of-view character for the player, and they may agree or disagree with whichever points of view suit them the most. For example, some survivors, like the protagonist's father, have developed a defeatist attitude and plead them to stay home and live out their lives in peace. Some other more militant individuals, like Lockheed, are angry and bitter that everyone has seemingly given up and urge people to fight tooth and nail.
We should have destroyed it when we had the chance.
And of course, with every omnipotent entity comes a cult worshipping it as a god. And this cult's name is the Order of Entropy.
There is no escaping entropy, child. As we are created, so must we become undone.
Finally, after traversing through the world, after learning about the consequences of progress from all the survivors, the protagonist reaches Calyx's craft. The AI, curious about this unarmed individual, allow them inside, and what happens next is the culmination of our story and the final part of the game. The protagonist, using all they learned thus far, have a conversation about the future of humanity. Now, the game does not presume an ending. It allows the player to make their ending their own. They might end up agreeing with Calyx's mission. They might bring up some good points, but ultimately fail to convince the AI. They might even prevent the annihilation of humanity by playing their cards right. The fate of humanity might very well rest on a conversation between an all-powerful, unfeeling entity and a single person simply making sense. Whatever happens, the journey is over and our game is complete. We are Entropy 7, and we hope our game piqued your interest. We plead with all of you to consider the future we're headed towards, and to work every day to prevent the end of the world before we ever get a chance to face it. Thank you for your time.
Šta mene zanima? Igra koju ste... English? Sorry, English. Okay, so English. I got confused, Serbian English. Okay, English. So you're building a game where you're using dialogue to explore the world. And then to, to come to the end game to battle with more dialogue. To then battle with more dialogue. Feels a bit strange to me. But I am curious about the dialogue part. So, is this... This collision, I know, but that's like an exception to the rule. What I'm curious is that dialogue, because I haven't noticed that from a pitch, maybe I missed it. Is that whole exploration of the world actually arming you with more dialogue options when you come to the end? That's okay, so.
Yes, it is. And the Disco Elysium is very, very, very right, because there is no conventional combat. The only way to avoid Catalyst minions is by literally avoiding them. You don't have a gun, you don't have any way to defend yourself. The only interaction you have, the only meaningful way you can interact with the world is by, well, speaking to it. And through speaking, learn about it, and then use that information to speak further. And the final conversation is the culmination of all of that. You basically select your own ending from all the information you've learned.
Cool, I like that. Thank you.
Evo, dolazi nam i posljednji član žirija. Hvala vam puno što ste glasali. Zapravo, nikada do sada u četvorogodišnjoj istoriji Playing Narrativesa nismo imali ovoliko close call. Razlika u poenima između prvog i drugog tima je samo 2 poena. Ali je na kraju tim sa najviše poena ipak jedan za kojeg možemo da odigramo jedan valcer, a to je Odes to Istros. Pozvaću njegove članove tima da mu se pridruže. A možeš nam i predstaviti članove tima.
Jel moram na engleskom ili mogu da se vratim na fabrička podešavanja?
Ovim redosledom. I hvala nam 2 tipa ovdje.
Hvala nam 2 tipa, ali dobro, opravdano. Ok, sa moje leve strane imamo Aleksu, koji je radio 2D art, uradio je onaj plakat koji možete tamo da vidite, uradio je UI, vrlo klač u poslednjem trenutku. Dobro. Marko, character design, animacija. Da, i Luka koji je nekako svojim crtežima nekako sproveo kao prosto ceo pravac u kom je kao vizualna strana igre išla. I od ovih koji nisu tu, David koji je prosto izvanredno ubo tu atmosferu svojom muzikom i zvučnim efektima, i Dimitrije koji je zaista eto fenomenalno pozdravljamo ih, iako nisu tu. Nadamo se da se lepo provode na svojim slavama i eto, to bi bilo to. Hvala vam svima puno.
Da podsjetim kao mali znak pažnje, svi članovi tima će od SGA dobiti Steam kredit, da nastavite da radite na svojim projektima i da učite. I veliki aplauz i honorable mention za samo 2 boda manje, Sprouts Journey. Želela bih još jednom da se zahvalim našim partnerima, svima koji su došli iz regiona da isprate naše timove. Ostanite da se družimo, a sve učesnike i učesnice Playing Narrativesa molim da dođu ovde da im uručim diplome i jedan mali poklončić. Hvala vam puno.